Welcome to MTALKS from MHouse. Meet the innovators in the Web3 and NFT space. We're still early, but there's no time to waste. Let's get started.
Today we have a true innovator. Bruno Skvorc is the founder of RMRK, and RMRK is a protocol for NFTs 2.0. He was also winner of the NFT Innovator of the Year 2021, and we're delighted to have him here on MTALKS. Welcome to Bruno Skvorc.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Bruno, maybe it's a good idea to start off with a little bit about your background for everybody. So you want to tell us a bit about where you came from before perhaps you got into crypto and Web3?
Yeah, sure. So I was a Web 2 developer back in the day. Actually started with Flash development, which was an incredibly satisfying part of my career. Code was straightforward back then. And I then kind of became a Web 2 developer, worked in that industry for a number of years. It wasn't until I, in 2015, heard of Ethereum, and it just so happened that in that same year, I data mined my happiness, and after a year or so of comparing happiness data over time, I came to the data-driven realization that JavaScript was making me miserable. And so it was a perfect time to switch from JavaScript to Ethereum, to blockchains. And I did it like full on. I dropped all of my current contracts for Web 2 and I moved into Web 3. And I spent the first few years just learning about it. Well, the first year almost entirely just learning about it, and then I switched to teaching about it. So everything I learned, I tried to pass on. I started a web portal for education to bring Web 2 developers onto Web 3, so that to just explain that it's nothing scary. That it's just a less efficient database that is set up differently, but otherwise everything is more or less the same. That resonated pretty well with certain companies, so I got hired to be first a senior editor at SitePoint, which is an education portal for programmers. And then later on, I got hired as a technical educator for Status, which is a company that was working on Ethereum 2.0 at the time to deliver the Ethereum 2 client called Nimbus.
Around what time did you start to produce this educational material?
2015, 2016. I had been an educator up until then, but for Web 2. So I immediately switched to educating, yeah.
And particularly around Solidity, I guess, from what you're saying, right?
Yeah, Solidity and integrating it into web apps. Since I was coming from web apps, it made sense to teach people how to integrate smart contracts with applications. And then I eventually got hired by the Web3 Foundation to work on Polkadot and Kusama. And it was at Kusama, while working on Kusama, that I decided to start RMRK, purely out of frustration with the current NFT ecosystem. It was all just links to images, sometimes not even decentralized images, but just images stored in a server somewhere that did nothing but gather digital dust. And so I figured, look, NFTs are definitely not living up to their potential. And I wrote the initial spec, started it as a hobby, and here we are. 1 year later, a year and a half, with 20 people on board.
MTALKS is sponsored by the Linked Collection, the definitive art collection of the Web3 revolution. Imagine being one of the founding members of a global community and owning a piece of history. Imagine being a core part of the most ambitious project ever launched, dedicated to digital art and ownership. Imagine 1,000 artists from 200 different countries with over 1 million supporters linked together, creating a movement of the scale never before seen. 10,000 fine art NFTs whose impact will echo throughout time. This is the Linked Collection, your entry to a community that will change the world. Visit mhouse.club/linked, LINKED, mhouse.club/linked.
You were super early, I guess, to Web3. So when did you first, what was your first experience with NFTs?
That was in 2017 when the CryptoKitties craze was starting out. So CryptoKitties was an early project on Ethereum, which was the first Web3 game to really resonate with the mainstream. And when people heard about these digital cats that are all different and unique and can be bred to produce new cats and bought and sold on the market for different traits and attributes, this was the first mainstreamization of Ethereum. And it was, in many ways, a very benevolent DDoS attack on the network, because the network actually ground to a halt because of high transaction fees during a few weeks of the CryptoKitties craze. But at that time, it never really went anywhere. No one was really surprised when the hype died down, and nothing happened with NFTs, because the potential was as lost as it was 2 years ago. They didn't really know what to do with them. And so it was a fun experiment for a while, but it ended. CryptoKitties were not the first NFT project, but they were the first popular NFT project. And so this was also my exposure to NFTs. I still have those CryptoKitties from back in the day, and yeah, that was my first experience with just tokens that are not meant for exchanges and such.
I remember CryptoKitties, and I remember, yeah, I mean that the first I heard of them, I think, was breaking Ethereum, essentially.
Yeah.
Which that trend hasn't stopped. I guess we're about a week after the Yuga Labs land sale, so that's still going on. And it's interesting because you're the second person that I've spoken to this week for the podcast that whose first exposure to NFTs was CryptoKitties. So I think it probably, I mean, yeah, I think it was the first high-profile project that brought the word NFT into a lot of people's minds if they were around back then, around 2017. Okay, so you still have some CryptoKitties. That's quite cool. But I guess, like you said, they didn't really catch on. What was your next experience with NFTs, or what brought you back into this world of NFTs?
I noticed that the craze was ramping up again in 2020, and that was in August of 2020. And I was working on this blockchain, Kusama blockchain, which was named after the Japanese artist Yayoi Kusama, who happens to paint all in Polkadot patterns. And so this is why the chain is called Kusama, because it's the canary network for the Polkadot chain. And since I was working on a blockchain focused on art, it felt like a shame for that blockchain not to have art. Additionally, there was this interesting challenge of building NFTs into a blockchain that was not ready to have NFTs, because it had no smart contracts and it wasn't really programmable. And so I had to find a way to hack NFTs onto a chain that didn't want them, just so that Kusama wouldn't miss out on the NFT craze. So it was just an interesting challenge. And I also figured that while I'm doing it, I might as well make NFTs a little bit better than what they are what they were at that point, which is just links to media. And it turned out that it really resonated with the community, and it works. There's a lot of demand for these advanced types of NFTs. And so, yeah, it all fell into place nicely.
Fantastic. Okay, now we're going to talk a lot, I think, about these advanced NFTs and Remark. But just before we get to that, do you want to tell us just a bit about the Polkadot ecosystem and Kusama? I mean, yeah, maybe just give us a general overview of how you found your way into it and what the relationship is between Kusama and Polkadot, and what is so attractive about the Polkadot ecosystem.
Sure. Well, I mean, I switched from my previous job to the Web3 Foundation purely because it was a better offer. It wasn't anything idealistic. Once I was working there, I realized that the tech is indeed impressive, and that it offers something that other blockchain systems do not. Most notably, there are three key aspects in Polkadot and Kusama that sold me on them. And so, first, to clarify the relationship, Polkadot is what we call a relay chain. And a relay chain is something that has these specific slots into which other chains can connect. And any chain that connects to this relay chain can talk to all the other chains very easily, and is also secured by the validators of this relay chain. So this relay chain has validators for proof of stake, but all of the validators are also securing all the connected chains, which means that you don't have to have a separate bridging infrastructure that's separately secured, and then your own infrastructure of validators to secure your chain. Instead, it's all one big shared security. And the more chains join the system, the more secure the system is, because more economic value is locked in that system.
Okay, so any chain joining Polkadot will automatically take on all of the validators from Polkadot.
Right. So it will just share the security of the entire network, which is not something.
Composability between chains, I guess, then is built in.
Yes, this is the other part, which so this is the relationship. Yeah, I was talking about the relationship. So Polkadot is one such chain, and Kusama is the canary network of that chain. So Kusama is like the early Polkadot that moves faster, has faster parameters, so that things are enacted much faster on it. Changes happen much faster, so that it's basically what you might call an incentivized testnet. It's not a testnet; it's a production network, but it gets all the code first, and there it's kind of given to the community for experimentation at 4 times the speed of Polkadot. And if it proves that it's viable and stable and everything, then it goes into Polkadot. And there are some features that only go into Kusama and some features that only go into Polkadot, because Polkadot is deemed to be the more conservative of the two, and Kusama is the more expect chaos, hacker-friendly one. You might call Kusama the people's chain, and the Polkadot is like the VC's chain. Anyway, what you have is killer features are this shared security is one of them, so that you don't have the problem of the whole system being only as secure as the weakest link in that entire system, as the weakest chain that's connected to it. The other key selling point is that you have automatically guaranteed message execution between these chains. So if one chain sends a message to another chain, that message is guaranteed to arrive, and that message itself is also secured by the validators. So there's no bridging infrastructure to drop the message or something. You will always be able to send a message from chain to chain, and that message will be executed properly. There are some guarantees that make sure that the message is interpreted properly. And the third selling point is forkless upgrades. And this means that you can upgrade the chain without having to organize a hard fork, a client patch for it, and then wrangle all the developers and organize a special date where everybody's online and updating their clients and watching if something breaks and so on. Instead, in Polkadot and Kusama, what you do is, if you want to enact a change on the chain itself, on the logic of the chain, you just upload the logic itself as code into the chain while it's running. And if people vote to enact it, so they vote with their tokens, there are some anti-whale mechanics, anti-abuse mechanics in there, and so on. If they vote to accept this change will automatically enact. It's like switching out the engine of a car while it's driving. So the chain is running, and then at a certain block, it just flips to the new runtime, new logic, and continues using the new rules. So you can actually do a lot of smaller incremental upgrades this way, rather than wait for one quarterly mega hard fork or something that would be much more dangerous, potentially, with hundreds of updates inside, big and small. And so this is kind of the key selling point there, which adds stability to the whole thing. It adds longevity. It adds the ability to experiment and for code bases to diverge. Like Kusama can get its own upgrades, Polkadot can get its own upgrades, and all of this is secured by this one shared security model.
Is it normal for applications to go from Kusama onto Polkadot, or will they always have their own ecosystem?
It happens. There are some projects that only launch on Kusama. There are others that only launch on Polkadot, and there are some that launch on both for production, and there are some that will launch on Kusama with the intent to kind of graduate to Polkadot later on. So it depends on the priorities of the application and on the target audience and so on. We've seen all use cases so far.
Tell us about the community within Polkadot, because one thing that we noticed was when you were nominated for the Innovator of the Year that you had a very, very active, vocal, and very passionate community that supported you. Is that the cult of Bruno, or is or is that is it generally a very supportive community, or is it a bit of both?
That is the cult of RMRK, I would say.
Remark. Okay.
Yeah. A lot of people are big fans of RMRK. It made quite a splash. It made many people a lot of money, both with just NFTs and the tokens and everything. And so people are very, very passionate about it, not just because of the tech it enables and the projects that are launching on it, but because they want to see this taken all the way to its intended goal. So we have a small but incredibly active and vocal and real community of users and minters and collectors and everybody. So we're very proud of this community, very happy that we found such passion in the ecosystem that goes beyond just people expecting some sort of exchange listing and the ability to flip your token and leave. It's the RMRK cult.
Okay, great. Well, let's jump into RMRK then, but maybe a good way to do that is, you mentioned earlier about NFTs just pointing to a file sometimes on a centralized server, and you talked about files gathering dust. Do you want to just tell us what you felt was broken in NFTs and that inspired you to develop RMRK?
Yeah, so a lot of NFTs, two things bothered me. One was that a lot of NFTs coming out had a centralized endpoint on which they hosted the media files, which means that when the server goes down, so do the files.
So literally on somebody's private server.
Yeah, it's going to be an HTTPS link in the metadata, and so the server goes down, the NFT goes down.
Yeah, so we're not even about IPFS or
not even IPFS. Exactly.
And what just out of interest, I mean, what's you're maybe an expert in this, but what percentage do you think of NFTs fall into that category?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I couldn't even estimate it, but I did see that a huge percentage of them is centralized when they launch by default on OpenSea, because OpenSea hosts them in a centralized way by default until you freeze the metadata, and then it rehosts on IPFS. But very few people do this. And so they end up with collections that are sold before they're frozen in terms of metadata. And you end up with NFTs that are centralized, essentially.
Interesting. And they're never migrated to IPFS?
Yep. Okay. Frankly, I mean, most people don't care.
Yeah. Well, I guess a lot of people don't know and also don't care.
Yeah. Like, the chances of an NFT disappearing are extremely slim. So, it makes sense that people don't care, but I've always been kind of this decentralization extremist and maxi, so it bothered me.
Well, I mean, you said the chances are small, but the chances are small now, I guess. But if we fast forward 5 years, even, or certainly 10 or 20 years, I guess the chances are increasing rapidly, right?
For sure. Yeah. And this is doubly true with the various Metaverse projects today. For example, they're all just multiplayer games that replaced username and password logins with reading an NFT balance. And all of them are running on AWS and other centralized servers. And so when those players leave, and they will leave because they will either get bored or vampire siphoned into another game or something, and there's nobody left to feed money into those projects, that those servers will become too expensive to maintain, and they will go down. And the same goes for the NFTs in general. It's just not worth it to keep a very seldom visited server online if it just hosts a few images for the NFTs.
Right. So as soon as that credit card expires, then those NFTs disappear, right? Yeah. Okay. So is that the main issue that you saw with them, or were there more?
The bigger issue was we don't actually mind having centralized metadata as long as it's one of the backups and not the main method of relying on reading. So the other thing that bothered me was that most NFTs did not survive past the initial hype wave. So if they were hyped up in the beginning, then as soon as that died down, the NFTs just collected dust in people's wallets, doing nothing. They can't evolve. They can't move past their original purpose unless somebody discovers them years down the line, like it happened with CryptoPunks. Nothing really happens to them. There's no progress. It doesn't go anywhere. And so they were functionally useless and just spamming people's wallets and the chain for no reason other than to make a quick flip for most people. And I wanted to give them utility. So for that, I needed to unlearn and teach others how to unlearn what they knew about NFTs and stop seeing them as links to images, and instead think of them as rows of cryptographic data that you can prove that you own. And when you look at it that way, you end up with a really interesting database that can reference anything. That row can reference anything, including another row. And when you abstract that and generalize that into a specification that you can reuse and create these NFT 2.0 Legos that we've created, then you come up with some really interesting use cases that were never possible before.
Just to make this clear, I guess, for people, when you say rows of data, what exactly? Or give us some examples.
Anything you can imagine that could reference your unique ownership can be a row of data. In your country's database, that is your national security number. In your country's land deed registry, that is the deed for your house. In your Twitter profile, that is your ID. And inside of that profile, that is the hash of your profile image. So literally any piece of data can be applicable to this, but you have the ability to prove that you own it with mathematical functions or cryptography.
Okay. What you're describing, this concept of ownership of a certain piece of data, is that not what you would describe every NFT as? Or yes.
Yep.
Okay.
But it's a specific subset of data that all the NFTs right now are. So all the NFTs right now are links to media data, and that is a very small subset of what rows of data that can link to anything includes.
Okay, so yeah, you're talking now, I guess, like your general PFP type project, right? It's a link very often to a JPEG, or that's what people think of when they think NFT.
Yep.
Obviously, I guess if you look at still in the art, and then if you look at art blocks, for example, the code is actually on the chain. So I guess that's a little bit different. It's not a link to JPEG, but for the vast majority, I guess people think NFT, they think art, and it's what they're actually thinking about is a link to a JPEG.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, so now you within Remark, you're looking at this differently, right?
Yeah. So we have these different NFT Legos, NFT 2.0 Legos that you can put together and create a system of any arbitrary complexity when you combine them. And the Legos are the first Lego is when any NFT can own any other NFT. So you can put an NFT, you can put any Remark NFT into any other Remark NFT. That's it. That's Lego 1. It is at the core of Remark. NFTs owning NFTs. And this alone is an incredibly powerful mechanism because it introduces true digital scarcity. True digital scarcity was advertised by NFTs since the beginning, but never realized. Because if you enter some sort of, let's say, a metaverse with, like I said, they replaced usernames and passwords for treating your NFT's balance. Well, if you fire up 50 different instances of that game, you can log into each one of them with that same NFT and have 50 simultaneous clients running because they just use your NFT balance to let you log in. They don't do anything else and any other checks. This is not digital scarcity. Digital scarcity is one NFT actually being available in one place at one time only. And you can do this with Remark because if you have an in-game avatar and you have a metaverse where you have virtual parcels of land, that avatar will be sent into the land. The land is an NFT, and that land will contain that avatar. It will own that avatar when you send it into the land. And by definition, it cannot be anywhere else. You cannot reuse it in other metaverses, or even in the same one in another land. It can only be there. And so you have this digital scarcity realized. Lego 2 is NFTs being able to have multiple resources. And that means that they will be able to alter their output based on context. For example, if you have an ebook NFT, that NFT can have one resource that is an audio file, and one resource that is a PDF, and one resource that is an image. And if you load it into Audible, it will just play. And if you load it into Kindle, you'll read the PDF. And if you load it into OpenSea, you'll just see the cover. So that one NFT contains all its renders, all its outputs for different contexts in the same NFT. You don't have to sell like a cover of a book separately and then airdrop the user with junk NFTs in their wallet. That one is an audio file and another will be a PDF. Instead, all the content is in the NFT itself. And this is key for building a lot of different other things. For example, this is what enables equipable and nested NFTs. So Lego 1 was nested NFTs, Lego 2 was multi-resource NFTs. Lego 2.5 is equipable NFTs because you can now send an NFT into another NFT, and we support composable NFTs where you can put a hat or whatever accessory onto any other NFT, and it will dynamically change the render. It's not going to replace the metadata. It composes the image live as you change that outfit. And I'm talking in terms of avatars and accessories because that's what most people understand, but this is applicable to any media type, including music or movies and so on. So the key selling point here is that this allows forward compatibility for NFTs. And that means that an NFT does not collect dust once the initial hype is over. Instead, it can be made compatible with other collections in the future. So if I have a red hat on my avatar now and I take it off, I unequip it, that NFT red hat is just a separate NFT, standalone. It just so happens to be compatible with the avatar. And now I can make it compatible with a collection that comes out a few months down the line by uploading another resource to it that visually matches that other collection. And so now that red hat will have two different resources. One that is designed to visually match the first collection it was compatible with, and the other that is designed to match the other collection that was made compatible with after the fact. And so we have given new utility to an existing NFT by making it equipable on a brand new collection. And so the more collections it's made compatible with, the more rarity it has, basically, which also turns rarity upside down because now you no longer have this static indicator of 3 in 10,000 red hats and pigs. But in fact, if you add new collections that support this equipable, it gets new demand every time it's made compatible with new collections. So this is a really powerful concept because every RMRK launched project supports this. Every project is compatible with another one if the issuers opt into this. This means that essentially the entire ecosystem is constantly evolving with new value being added on top. And we have now dozens of projects building this exact thing and being mutually compatible with one another.
Fascinating. I've heard you speak about this before. I can see the attraction of these three Legos. Could you give us maybe two examples of these in action, just to make it more tangible for people listening and for me as well, and maybe if it's possible, one example within an art or visual or collectible kind of area, and maybe one, because you spoke earlier about your Twitter login, you spoke about your social security number, you spoke about real estate. I'm personally quite interested, even though our focus within MHAS is a lot on art and artists. I'm personally quite interested in real world assets and real estate being tokenized in the future as NFT. So I don't know, do you think you could give us an example of each of those?
Sure. One of the most recent project that launched on Remark is I think the world's first composable PFP, where you buy it's called Mushroomtopia, and you buy a trippy mirror NFT that is an empty mirror, like representing your soul. And it has 3 resources. 1 is an audio file, like a soundtrack for this NFT. 2 is a video that just spins the mirror. And the 3rd one is the composable mirror. And so what you do is you collect parts of the PFP on the marketplace by buying a head, a body, a background, a handheld item, headwear, and so on. And these also have multiple resources where they look nice standalone, but also have this counterpart that lets you equip them onto this mirror. And by collecting all of these pieces, you basically assemble your avatar from these trippy fragments. My PFP on Twitter right now is one such composed avatar. And so this creates a huge economy where the accessories are not just tradable between series and editions of these launches. Like Mushroomtopia just had a season 2 that has like a totally different theme to it, but it's still compatible with the previous version, so you can mix and match. But also, this can all be made compatible with other projects in the ecosystem. So we have the Canaria project, which is our flagship project for Remark, that demonstrates all of these Legos put together, all 5 of them. And when you have these Canaria birds, these canaries, and they can equip and unequip items. They have non-transferable NFTs inside of them to give them permanent value. They have these accessories that you can equip and unequip, and they're also multi-resource. For example, the Canaria Super Founder number 1 has 3 resources. 1 is the composable bird. The other is a very beautiful illustration. And the 3rd one is actually this statue here that's spinning behind me. And it's represented on the NFT itself as a GIF of the statue spinning. These Mushroomtopia PFP fragments can be made compatible with Canaria. So the hats that you have in Mushroomtopia to use as headwear on these PFPs, you can equip them onto the birds. And so you have this cross-collection compatibility of items. So that's one example for art and for composables. Another one that we're seeing a lot of uptake in, and 5 projects are currently building this, with 1 deep in production, is using the NFTs as reputational systems, as visual indicators for reputation. And the way this works is, like I mentioned before with Polkadot and Kusama, you have the ability to vote on chain changes. As people submit a new update to the chain, people will vote with their tokens to accept or not accept it. These are called referenda, these votes. And when you vote on one of these, you will get if you don't have one, you will get a trophy shelf. But if you have one, you don't get one. And for every vote you cast, you will get a trophy. And you can equip these trophies onto this trophy shelf. And so apart from getting these cool trophies and building your really custom visual shelf with this to indicate your participation on chain in a visual way for bragging rights, this has the added implication of containing all of your reputation in one NFT. Because you can read an NFT and all of its equipped children. And so you can imagine now, as you build out this reputation using this shelf, you can take that NFT into something like a DeFi protocol and get an under-collateralized loan, because your reputation is your collateral. And this is possible because Polkadot connects all of those chains natively, and you can very easily teleport these assets back and forth. So this is really cool. In terms of real-world asset tokenization, this has not happened yet on Remark. We are eagerly awaiting the first use cases. So nothing to report there, but there are many different use cases that are perfectly valid for this. Some people have actually tokenized whiskey bottles and tried selling those as NFTs, and this worked to an extent. But I'm personally more excited about stuff that will replace the bureaucratic machine of countries. So land deeds and land ownership and records of various kinds that need to be verified in a central authority and so on. So I do hope that we'll see a lot of real estate NFT experimentation very soon. But frankly, I'm more excited about music NFT use cases, which are ideal for Remark. So this is going to be a huge blowout in terms of features and demand and everything.
All right. Well, I mean, don't stop there. Then tell us about music NFTs, why they're perfect for Remark, and what you're seeing.
Well, you can imagine a use case of minting a music track that is just empty, and it has several slots for stems. And now others can create stems that they can equip into this music track, into the different slots. And you end up with a collaborative music composition that can distribute royalties to everybody who participated on every sale, because Remark is also one of the only protocol actually that solved the nested royalties problem. Like, how do you distribute the royalties of somebody who sells an avatar which contains a jacket, which contains a patch, and the patch was designed by somebody else entirely who wants a separate royalty? So in this case, every composer of every stem would get their own fair share of royalties on every sale of the song, which is cool enough on its own. But then these stems, if somebody makes a really cool drum track, this can be made compatible with stuff like a plot of Metaverse land. And so now as you walk your avatar into that land, you get background music from that stem, which is kind of cool because now you're making sound compatible with being equipped in a completely unrelated media type. So you're putting sound behind a piece of virtual real estate. And the rarity of that stem itself has skyrocketed because it's now compatible with an entire Metaverse world, which I think is really cool. Additionally, with the system of nested NFTs and applying different things to different slots and different positions in those audio files, you can actually come up with a really good creator meets community infrastructure where the creator can encourage and maybe experiment with the community remixing their songs by replacing some stems and applying some filters and so on, and then actually producing original work that is qualifiable to be canon, to be added to the album or to a remix album and be basically blessed by the creator, by the original artist, which I think is also incredibly interesting.
That's fascinating. So do you have, is there a large music ecosystem already appearing on Kusama, or is this something that's kind of coming down the pipeline?
Not large. There are some music works minted on Singular, and actually some have experimented with the multi-resource implementation of things to actually launch albums. So it's one NFT, but has multiple resources for each song. And so you can just flip through them and play the songs in order. We are working with a group of music artists to talk to them on what features they need, what they want to see, and collecting their feedback so that we can do a huge audio upgrade pass and build some really cool things. But there are also other projects in the ecosystem that are heavily using our technology to launch their own separate funded ventures that will be actual music platforms dedicated to certain genres and types of businesses. So there are things happening, yeah.
Okay, fascinating. Tell us the relationship between Remark and Singular, because you speak about them both. So
Singular is a marketplace using the Remark standards.
Okay, so Remark's the protocol and Singular is the marketplace.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. And so, what is the most popular thing right now on Singular? Is it visual art? Is it collectibles still?
It is. It is still collectibles. We have recently made it very easy for people to launch revealable NFTs in a decentralized way. So there's a lot of that going on. A lot of people are minting their various robot boxes, clone pods, and whatever else you might imagine that will be revealed to contain something else in the future. So there's a lot of that going on. But one of the most popular genres to come out on Singular right now is the I don't know what you might call it. It's kind of like a game, like a choose your own adventure game for multiple people, where you have this avatar and there are certain chapters that happen periodically about it, usually happening in Discord and so on. And when those events happen, your avatar has to be prepared in a certain way. And then some sort of battle will happen. And if you had the right stuff equipped at the time, then you will either win or lose or have a better chance of winning or losing and so on. And this is turning out to be really interesting because there's some really, really cool art happening. One of those projects is the Kusama routers. and the other one is Everloot. And both of those are like, if you've ever played the games from Failbetter, those are the Sunless Skies and Sunless Sea. They're kind of like Cthulhian in nature and almost text-based. And this is similar to that. You have like this graphic novel feel to them that evolves over time, but you can influence in some way. So it's a really interesting genre that's coming up, and I'm really excited to see where they take it.
Remark and Singular, they're let's say Polkadot ecosystem based. If there are people listening to this who are more, I don't know, let's say Ethereum based or something, they want to get involved and check out what's happening on Singular, I guess, as a marketplace. What do you recommend? What's a good first step for them?
Just going to Singular.app. If the interface is not intuitive enough, then we have failed, and we want to hear about it. So they should go to Telegram, so t.me/remarkapp, and yell at us there. It should be pretty self-explanatory. They do need to, unfortunately, install another wallet. So that is a huge barrier to adoption. And it has proven difficult to break out of the Polkadot echo chamber. So this is something that we are trying to remedy. For some reason, that our voice doesn't penetrate that far. Even though we started much sooner and have much more advanced technology in terms of NFTs, it's very difficult to reach people. So we're hoping to change that with good UX, and also with our redeployment of Remark on EVM chains. So we have 3 versions of Remark right now. One is the Rust version for all the Rust chains to implement into their runtime directly. One is the Kusama version that uses the hack I described before. This is still active, and this is the main one right now on Singular.app. When you connect, that's the default. And the third one is the EVM version, contracts that we are going to be launching on a variety of EVM chains in order to take some of that market share and show people that NFTs can actually do much more.
Okay, interesting. Any idea when when EVM, I guess, is the question, when that will launch?
We are a lot of our stuff is ready for testing. We don't have a UI for it yet, so people can start playing with it already. And I am about to submit a EIP for one of the Legos to be considered by the Ethereum community, so that it's formalized and like official. And then we will start launching that across the board, all over the place. So that's one Lego, and then at least 3 more until we are feature complete. The problem is that with Ethereum, the attack surface is much bigger. And so there's a lot of things to take care about.
Yeah, okay. I was going to ask that, will it have the full functionality? But it sounds like, yes, it will, but you need to add those one by one as EIPs.
Yeah, very carefully and very slowly, yeah.
Just out of interest, what do you think is the time frame between submitting EIP and having it reviewed and approved?
Oh, I don't expect it to be approved ever. It is far too complicated to even reasonably expect a fast discussion. If you're familiar with the royalties standard that was just added late last year into the NFTs on Ethereum, that was just 2 optional fields, because since royalties cannot be enforced on chain, it has to be optional. It has to be opt-in by the marketplaces and implementers. And 2 optional fields, one that tells how much royalty a person should get, and the other one that tells who it should be. Those 2 optional fields took 3 years of discussion to get merged, 3 full years. And so I am not optimistic that our EAPs would get merged anytime soon, but they need to be formally submitted in order to be, implementable by the people at large. So we'll just do it that way.
Okay, interesting. I didn't realize it took 3 years for those royalty standards, and which are still not even being implemented, as far as I know, by OpenSea or by the vast majority of marketplaces.
Yeah, they're not very good, to be honest. Like, they specify the royalty in a fixed amount rather than a percentage, which doesn't make sense. So it's kind of it's as if it was implemented by people who don't really use NFTs.
Okay, so I heard a rumor actually it wasn't a rumor, it was you just before this call, that Remark is building a metaverse. So do you want to confirm this this rumor and tell us more about the Remark metaverse?
Yes. So I actually have a secret agenda, and that is to Trojan into people's heads and into the world the SDK and technology for building a visual congregation space for people where they can communicate visually in a censorship and downtime resistant way. And I decided to ninja that into the world by masking it as a game.
Oh my God, this sounds like it should be its own podcast. I love what you've said. I don't know how many times you've practiced that in front of a mirror, but that was amazing. I love it. I'm going to replay this again. As soon as Secret Agenda, you got my attention, and then everything that followed was even better. So, okay, repeat that and break that down for us again, and tell us, because this is gold.
So the problem, like I said, with metaverses today is that they will all disappear. 99% of them will be gone this time next year. If the bear market doesn't kill them, then server expenses will. Because
I mean, do you want to just talk about that real quick? Why you think that is? I mean, just from my perspective, I mean, if we go back even like a year or max 2 years ago, there was, I don't know, you could like name the metaverses that the 90% of people knew on like one hand. You had Decentralised, you had I don't know, Sandbox was even maybe not fully launched 2 years ago. Crypto voxels, and it just seemed amazing that you'd had this land, there was this scarcity, and then suddenly a million metaverses popped up, and you're like, okay, there's nothing really scarce here.
Yep.
And it started to question that whole concept of scarce digital property. And now, like you said, there seem to be metaverses popping up constantly. So where do you think it's gone wrong, and why do you think they will all disappear?
Oh, well, it's very much the ICO craze of 2017 with metaverses. They're just, people are hiring Fiverr artists to do AAA demos and animations to post on Twitter and do fundraisers on top of, with zero game development experience, zero game economy planning experience. None of them have ever heard of, game economy, let alone tools like machinations and similar. None of them really have any game development experience that would sustain a metaverse for a long time, and none of them actually realize how difficult it is to build an actually fun and engaging game long term. There's a reason free-to-play games last 3 to 6 months before going under and collect all the stuff they can in that time. It's like there's a serious player bleed in all of the games, and it's a constant battle for attention. And if you cannot keep that attention, you will lose money. If you're running a badly developed, a badly ideated game on just AWS and throwing money at it, when the bear market comes, and lo and behold, it came, you will run out of money to fund those servers. So if you have no money coming in, you will have no reason to keep those servers up. It's as simple as that. Those metaverses will go down. They're not metaverses. They're just multiplayer games. And
right, I was going to say, you're talking about games here, but when you're talking about games, you're talking about, I guess, the majority of metaverses. You're using that term interchangeably.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I use the term as those who advertise themselves as metaverses rather than actual metaverses. It's a different thing to have an actual metaverse. Like, I define a metaverse as an online virtual environment in which reasonably unique representations of real human beings can interact with each other and the world, and also own that experience when it's done. So this is a key part. You own your experience when it's done. It doesn't go away with the server. And this is just not doable with the current NFT infrastructure. It's not. You will end up, even if you want to bring that experience over from a game into your wallet, it'll result in just token spam. So if you're an ape in a game and you collect 5 bananas, you end up with a token spam of 5 bananas. If you collect a jacket avatar, a jacket for the avatar, you'll end up with a jacket somewhere in there. If you then want to bring that jacket over by some miracle into another metaverse or game, you will have to be airdropped another NFT. And so you end up with a lot of junk that doesn't actually represent your journey of experience. It just represents junk. It represents anything you could have gotten as on the free market as well. And it's kind of disjointed, especially as the digital scarcity component falls apart, and as you can log into many different games with the same avatars and with the same items and equip that jacket onto all of these avatars, it all kind of breaks the immersion of everything, of all of this metaverse stuff. What we've come up with here is that it's just the only infrastructure that makes decentralized metaverses possible is Remark, because with Remark you can have an avatar that has, let's say you put an avatar into a piece of land. So that alone facilitates the digital scarcity component. And then this avatar can have, let's call it an NFT brain. And the NFT brain is a non-transferable NFT inside of a transferable NFT, inside of that avatar. And we already have these non-transferable NFTs inside of transferable NFTs with the Canaria birds. They all contain gems that are non-removable. And so that brain can have certain, let's say, skill slots or recipe slots or even a personality slot. And the personality can be a non-transferable NFT in its own right. So you can actually install a personality into or a pathfinding algorithm into your NFT's brain. But also every time you do something in the game, you can put those experience points into the character itself. And this is how your character actually grows. It evolves in your game. Every time you're finished with an interaction, every time you're done with let's call it playing, because we're masking this as a game, every time you're done with that, you log out with a slightly more valuable NFT because it has slightly more experience represented inside of itself. That experience is a key part of that avatar itself. And this is where the true metaverse representation of uniqueness and humanity comes into play, because you're working on one representation of yourself. You can always have multiple avatars, but you cannot reasonably and without botting or cheating or whatever, level them all up. You have to kind of build that reputation on one representation of your avatar, at least one in that game or however you want to play it. And so this is how avatars, this is how NFTs can evolve in this environment. Additionally, you don't need a server architecture, a server structure to monitor for things like, is this avatar in two places at once and cheating? Because if your avatar is in a piece of land, it cannot be in another piece of land by default. It's already on chain. It's already verified. It's already anti-cheat. And then we also have this added component. We just also actually started a new venture with a partner from the ecosystem called Phala. They have decentralized cloud computing. And if you end up with a game that you built that has some sort of backend processing that you do need to do, you can host it on their chain, and it's going to be decentralized. So, for example, if you're building a game
what's the name of the chain?
Phala.
F-A-L-A?
Yeah, no, P-H-A-L-A.
Okay.
And so they run this decentralized cloud, where if you end up with a game like Civilization, let's say that you end up in a move where you have to calculate the moves for all the NPCs. That calculation would happen on Phala. And then this would get pushed back into the state of the game as an NFT on Remark, and the game would continue from there. So with Remark, you end up with evolvable, always valuable, growing NFTs that can also have reputational value attached to them, that runs on decentralized infrastructure and doesn't require servers, and also feeds into the whole vision of a true metaverse global item economy, because it has those multi-resource NFTs. So now, if I have my avatar in a metaverse, and that metaverse is kind of cartoonish, and then there's another metaverse that is hyper-realistic, I don't have to pick between buying an avatar jacket that is either cartoonish or hyper-realistic. I buy one NFT that has a representation for either of these environments. And so depending on what environment I equip it in, that is the render that I'm going to see. So we have this true portability of items and accessories into many different verses of many different kinds, embedded into the protocol itself, along with evolvability of characters and collecting of reputation and collecting of skills and resources and upgrading your entire experience. And all of this is then applicable to any other type of communication that you want to build. So we have this SDK. You use this SDK to launch your own game-like experience. It doesn't even have to be a game. It can just be a congregation space online. And there you will interact with other people and you can customize that game experience however you see fit. And your NFTs will evolve according to your rules, but they will only be available in that one space at the same time. So this is kind of the vision that we're bringing forward. It's kind of like, really reasonably human representations communicating with each other and evolving with the space in a kind of realistic way.
Well, fascinating. Okay, so you mentioned earlier about the anti-cheats. I mean, I never really thought about that. So I guess in theory, I can open up 20 browser windows and I can launch my character in the sandbox and in all 20, and so I can swarm sandbox with one character. Okay, I didn't realize that. I mean, to be honest, none of the metaverses are really that user friendly that you would even want to be in more than one window at a time at the moment. So never really crossed my mind. But good to know. So how do you manage that anti-cheat part of it?
Just by having well-defined standards. We started bottom up and developed a standard in a way that covers most of these use cases. So, like, if you're building something as high frequency as a first-person shooter, and you put your player character into a map. Let's say we're playing Quake, and you put your player character into a map. That's a transaction. You put the avatar into the map, literally. Then the enemies put their characters into the map. Literally, everybody's in the same location. Then, if you take damage in the game, you know that this character has this weapon equipped. And if you take damage that doesn't match this weapon, it's simply not possible that it happened. So you can't take damage that you don't have a weapon for. So all of this is built into the fact that you can just, reasonably securely equip items and use them on your avatars according to the rules of the protocol. And this takes care of the vast majority of the cheating. Now, it doesn't take care of the botting or Sybil resistance, and for that we're outsourcing, checking to various DID protocols for the people who care about this sort of stuff when they launch their own game experiences. But in general, it solves a lot of these problems.
Okay, so it sounds a little bit like you're kind of triangulating based on multiple different elements of that instance, and then saying that you can only have one instance, one true instance then, right, based on that?
Yep.
Okay. And you talked about Phala, which was decentralized cloud. You talked about it, I think, in terms of coordinating non-playing characters, for example. So you're talking about fairly high throughput calculations there, I guess, and putting those back into the game. I mean, is that a working product?
It's a working product. You can use it right now. They have this thing called the FAT contract, which you can use to apply any logic in to even go as far as pull Oracle data inside of it into the chain and apply it to your processing in there. It's really designed to process data for you in a decentralized way. So this is highly usable for any backend task that you need to do. Of course, nobody's ever going to put a AAA game fully on chain or something and use the blockchain as a database and so on. There's a lot of projects that are advertising, fantasies like AI on blockchain or AAA on blockchain or zero latency gaming on blockchain. None of that is true, and they're all lying. It's not possible. And as technical people, we tend to stay more realistic, more grounded in this, and know what's possible and what isn't possible. That is not possible, but it is possible to offload low frequency, high computation tasks into such an engine like Phala is, and then use the result of that computation to log an NFT state and continue the game from that new state. So that is more than possible.
Is Phala multi-chain, or does it focus on one chain? I mean, I guess it's multi-chain, isn't it?
No, Phala is a parachain in the Kusama and Polkadot network. So it's connected to Kusama.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so then it sounds like a lot of the activity on your game does happen then on chain, right?
It depends entirely on the experience being built. Yeah. So for Skybreach, that's our metaverse. We don't anticipate a lot of backend activity.
Skybreach.
Yeah. We don't anticipate a lot of backend activity at all. We think all of the logic of the game is doable through NFTs, and the occasional smart contract governing resources, maybe selling of crafting recipes and stuff like that. This is all like just setting up basically smart contract shops. Nothing really special. We'll see about instanced locations where we, start adding in stuff like player versus environment elements and so on. But in general, I don't expect there to be a lot of need for backend processing at least on the Skybreach end.
Okay. And is Skybreach, is it live now?
No. We are just starting our land sale to finance the second stage of development. We have some prototypes in action, and we're working on the assets and everything, but it's nowhere near live now.
Okay. And do you have a time frame?
It's going to happen sometime next year. We started this new venture for building the SDK with Phala, so that we're both building our respective worlds using this SDK and solving problems that we have in our respective projects, and then abstracting that away into this SDK. And we aim to end up with this tool that others can use to build their own game-like experiences in a few clicks, basically. We are the RMRK team is UI, UX, and NFT experts, and the Phala team is backend and chain and processing experts. And by putting us together, you get this really cool SDK that you can just click your way through and have a game experience set up in an hour that plugs into an existing metaverse or just launches your own metaverse or a multiplayer game on any infrastructure that you want.
Okay, great. Who do you see use it? Everybody or specific groups?
Primarily Web3 teams that have zero game development experience, so that they can actually get to a product much faster. Secondarily, game development teams that are Web3 averse. So there's a lot of anti-NFT sentiment in the Web3 ecosystem, not just because of NFTs, but also the fact that you just need wallets and transaction signing and all of that garbage that players just don't want to deal with in game, especially. So as we abstract that away in the SDK and make it much easier to use by, literally not even bothering the game developers with that, I think it's going to be much more interesting for them to start exploring Web3.
Okay, and how do you abstract that away? Is it just through the UI and UX that you sign once and then things just happen? Or?
Yeah, something like that. So we're exploring session keys, generating temporary burner wallets in the local storage of the client, applying proxy accounts to major accounts that can then be kind of basically hot wallets in local storage again, and responsible for just movement actions or something that doesn't need signing. So you can separate the concerns like trading into a sign-only wallet or sign-only private key, while movement can be consigned to a much more security relaxed wallet that will sign transactions as needed, but automatically and transparently without bothering the user at all.
Okay, and then let's go back then to the beginning when you talked about your secret agenda. Can you just remind us again, because we spoke about a lot in between, what was your secret agenda and then how are you going to achieve it? Because we love secret agendas.
Yeah, so the secret agenda is to just launch this. This is the SDK, actually. So the secret agenda is to launch a toolkit for people to build decentralized and censorship and downtime resistant environments to virtually interact in and communicate with, and still own the experience of their interactions from that result. And so by delivering this SDK as an open source set of plugins and tools, we hope to empower everybody to use this, not just for games, even though it's easiest to make people understand it with games, not just for games, but literally to form any sort of environment where you can communicate in this way, and be sure that it's not going down, that nobody's going to stop it. So ideally, it's going to be something as secure as you launching your website through ENS or something. Like, there's no way anybody can take that down. And the same I would like to see applied here.
That's fantastic. You're definitely a decentralization maxi. Yeah. Right. I mean, I love it. It's great. I love that you're devoting your life and your mission towards trying to how would you say, like, con people into doing like the best thing for themselves. It seems like let's build this whole world and metaverse and game just to fool people into doing the right thing that they should be doing in the first place.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
That's great, because so many people are doing the opposite, I guess. Right?
Yeah.
They're pretending that things are decentralized, and they're pretending that things are censorship resistant when they're absolutely not. So I mean, I love it. I'm a really big fan. Okay, is there anything else? Well, you just mentioned the land sale, so tell us more about the land sale. Maybe there's people watching this that want to get involved.
Yeah, so we're trying to fund this next leg of our build process through this land sale. It has a nice lore attached, and you can actually follow along with the evolution of the project. The Skybreach concept is actually developed in such a way that it will support any kind of lore and story you want to breach into that universe. So it's kind of developed to support kind of this multi-metaverse sort of thing, where based on the lore, there was this spell that broke reality, and so now you can bleed into other ecosystems that have maybe completely different pasts and futures and so on. So you can think of it as being able to blend in steampunk past with cyberpunk future, with ancient, like prehistoric dinosaurs or whatever you want. Anything goes, so that people have maximum creativity that is nonetheless canon and applicable to the game itself. And we'll have a toolkit that helps with this. And so the land sales are needed to assist with this. And we're also using this to pioneer harbinger taxed land, which is land that is always for sale. And that's going to be in premium locations. So this is something that we are introducing. One of the things that we're introducing to combat squatting. Many projects that sell virtual land today have a problem of people just grabbing land and never being around to utilize it in any way. We are getting around that with one of the mechanics is the harbinger taxed land. And so this is going to be one type of land that's sold. The other land is just regular virtual real estate that you're used to from other games. That is starting somewhere in a month, I hope. Still developing, putting finishing touches on it. There are certain groups, certain NFT holders from Ethereum that have whitelist advantage for minting this. This is all documented in our wiki, so I would recommend just going to skybreach.app and following the link there to all the explanations.
Skybreach.app. Okay, got it. I like the name. It sounds quite James Bond.
Indeed.
Excellent. Okay. I just out of interest, you mentioned that certain Ethereum folks have a whitelist advantage. Any particular reason? Just since you're Polkadot based?
We really want to grab the attention of the people in Ethereum. It has been really hard to reach them, even though we have the best NFT infrastructure ever. Like, we have the most advanced toolkit that they can use to build really epic things. Still they default to raccoons with shirts and robots with hats. It's just discouraging to see. So we're trying to reach them by giving them tickets to the front row seats of this new frontier. Those will be the typical blue chips, apes. We also included holders of land in the existing metaverses, so they obviously showed interest in virtual land, so might as well include them. And we also added in lobsters. So lobsters is a group is an alpha group. Those who know will know. And there's some other ones in there as well.
Okay. Anything else you want to say about the metaverse?
No, I think that's it. I would be happy to answer any questions. If you have any, just reach out to me. I'm always around on Telegram and whatnot. But I recommend reading the wiki. I believe it's all fairly clear. If you want to get your hands on some land early, we distributed free land to all the canary birds, and the canary birds still have those vouchers in their inventories, and you can burn them to claim your land. So that's also one way to get land.
To buy a canary bird.
Correct.
But I guess you need to check that it's got the land title.
Yep, there will be a little icon on it, and also you can check its backpack for the land deed itself.
Okay, good to know. All right. Any other upcoming projects? I mean, it sounds like this is going to keep you busy.
Yeah. Well, the biggest upcoming change that we have planned is just making Singular, the marketplace, EVM compatible, so that we can start deploying the RMRK EVM contracts, because it doesn't make sense to deploy them before we have Singular compatible with all of this. And so this is kind of the like a catch-22 that we have to resolve right now. But other than that, no, Skybreach is our focus. Some of those music upgrades, and of course making it all work on EVM.
Yeah, great. I asked you about the EIP earlier, but when do you think you'll be launching RMRK NFTs on EVM?
I will submit the so as soon as Singular is EVM ready, we'll be launching on all the chains that we can launch on. Now on Ethereum, it probably wouldn't make sense because these NFTs are designed to be highly interactive, and so you can't really expect people to pay $100 to send a thumbs up emoji onto an NFT. But all the other EVMs will be usable, and also Ethereum might work for multi-resource NFTs. So that would probably work. Maybe even nested NFTs, but not frequent interactions, not that.
Yeah.
Anyway, as soon as Singular is EVM ready, we'll be launching on as many chains as we can.
Okay. Did I see today that I wasn't feeling so well today? I wasn't spending a lot of time online, but I heard that did I see that Facebook Meta are working with Polygon?
I'm not sure about that. I do know that there's going to be NFT verification on Instagram, and that it's going to support, among other things, Polygon NFTs, ETH NFTs, and something else.
What do you see as the future of? I mean, I guess I know your answer to this, but I was going to say, where do you see NFTs and Web3 in the future? If we, so like you got into this area very, very early. You got into CryptoKitties 2017. Then we saw Punks around the same time, I guess. Then you said that like the middle of 2020. The fresh new rise of NFTs. I mean, so much has happened. In one way, so much has happened since then. Definitely a lot has happened in the market since then. Like if you look at like Bored Apes are just like 1 year old now. It just seems crazy. It feels like they've been around forever. On the other hand, I guess as you mentioned, NFTs themselves haven't really evolved that much. So what do you see? Actually, let me go back a bit. You said something earlier, and I'm glad you said it. I didn't say it. You said, the B word. You said the bear markets, coming. Maybe it's here. Do you think that we're in a bear market?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly looks like that today as we watch. Did Bitcoin hit drop under 30 today? I think it might have. I don't even know. Is it under 30 now? Quite possibly.
It wasn't half an hour ago, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is now. Yeah.
I mean, do you think we're in a classic bear market, like another 1 to 2 years of this before that we start to approach the next halving and things come up, or like what are your thoughts around that?
Yes, I think it's going to be a multi-year one. It certainly looks that way. It's overdue for deflation, but it's also you can see how the stocks are melting, and you can see the stuff with the inflation from COVID and stuff. I think we can expect another recession. That could be good or bad for crypto, we'll see. But in any case, I do think we're in it for a year or two of cooling down, for sure.
Yeah. Because I mean, crypto markets seem just like super coupled now to S&P and just the mainstream market, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Even though the obviously the promise of Bitcoin, at least there's going to be the inflation hedge and everything else. Do you see us breaking out of that coupling, or no, not really? I think we're going to kind of follow along for now.
When
more liquidity in the market.
When Bitcoin goes to and stays at zero, then yes. Then we will finally be free. But before that, I don't think so. Bitcoin is still dominant pair on all the exchanges, and so everything goes down with it. So as soon as we can get rid of that horse and carriage in this space race of ours, the better.
Okay, you don't sound like a Bitcoin maximalist.
Bitcoin, if it was launched today, would be laughed out of the room. And I am all for respecting your elders, but at some point you have to realize that worshipping, I don't know, a square-wheeled horse carriage over an electric vehicle makes no sense.
Okay, well, this is definitely another podcast. Okay, so I mean that I was in the middle of asking another question there, but I thought it's worth touching on that first. So, if we look back at, let's say, 2018, when maybe we're in a similar situation market-wise as we're in now. I guess after the ICOs of 2017, and then we hit the bear market. Obviously, a lot of those ICOs kind of just disappeared. A lot of them didn't, and became, the monsters, let's say, of the bull run of 2020, 2021. And do you think we'll see the same thing happen this cycle?
Probably, yeah, probably. So, I think the COVID thing accelerated the advent of VR and generally just virtual hanging out in all kinds of ways. And so I think the few projects that do survive the bear market that are dealing with virtual interactions of any kind will do really, really well, because, a lot of progress has been made both in the hardware space and the software space, and the entire infrastructure of the world is better, like all the connectivity and everything. And I think we can expect some really high fidelity experiences when we come out of the bear market for sure. And so projects that are focusing on this are probably going to do really well. And I also think that like the next bear market is going to be the market of the DAOs. Like we had one for DeFi, we had one for NFTs. Now it's time for the DAOs to take the stage again, as we slowly realize that the DAOs of the past and present actually are also mock DAOs, like NFTs, where what people call DAOs today are mostly discourse forums with a 3 out of 3 multisig or something behind them. It's not a DAO at all. So I think we're going to see a DAO renaissance. And this is going to be a really interesting one as protocols actually do start to decentralize and remove responsibility from fewer actors as the SEC starts to go after more and more projects.
Yeah, they just doubled their task force. Yeah. Who do you think they're going to be going after? I mean, I guess, do you think a lot of NFT teams with kind of crazy roadmaps or more DAOs? Or
I think they'll try and skim off the top of the big ones first.
Yeah, of course.
The SEC has not been really very adamant on just really, shutting down the big ones. They just want their share. And so I think they might collect about 100 or 150 million from Yuga Labs. And just other big projects like that. Like I think Sandbox is still having regular sales of their land, even 5 years in or however much. So I think they're overdue for a slap on the wrist. We'll see. Well, I think they'll start with the big ones, and then they'll start going after the smaller ones to set an example once they've collected some tax.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So 5 years from now, NFTs and Web3, where are we going to be?
Well, I've been saying for the past year that in 3 years, every NFT in the world is going to be based on Remark or a clone of it, because nothing else really makes sense. It's like there are certain technologies that human civilization converges towards. And if you killed 5 people who were working on the steam engine, a 6th one would have made it. And from that steam engine, the same technology would arise, steamboats and even nuclear reactors. There's just some technologies that are unavoidable, and Remark is one of those. This is where a lot of the pressure of this race is coming from, because I know that a lot of people are trying to copy us and succeeding. and that it's going to be quite a bloody war in this bear market. But we're also weirdly excited about it. I can say with a lot of certainty that within not even 5 years, but 2 years from now, everything will be based on a Remark-like protocol. Whether that's Remark or something else, I don't know. But nothing will be ERC 721 anymore because it just doesn't make sense.
Interesting. Okay. Do you think the ERC 721s will be able to adapt to the Remark protocol?
No, they're fairly easily wrappable in this. Our interface for the multi-resource NFTs supports ERC 721 directly as a drop-in replacement.
Okay, good. All right, tell us, who's your biggest inspiration? It could be in crypto or outside crypto.
Probably Musk. Just purely because of his drive. Just, I can relate to his 18 to 20 hour work days and weight gain because of it. So it's kind of fitting. I don't know, but I appreciate his drive, and like when he puts his mind to something, if he doesn't understand it, he'll just learn about it and develop it. I can't compare myself to his intellect in any way, but I can definitely compare my ambition to his and the desire to make this thing work. So it's probably
Who else do you think we should speak to?
For NFTs in particular, I would say, I don't know really. From Polkadot, there's not much going on, except us. Well, I mean, I personally would love to listen in on some chats with the guys from Yuga Labs, if you can get those guys on board. That would be really interesting to hear how their brains work and how they got this behemoth to run in only a year. Here we have a very interesting problem of, they're planning to build a metaverse on top of other side that is built to do everything that we kind of built as part of Remark. We know they don't have the tech, and we know they can't pull it off, and we know that our tech is ideal for them, but there's no way to reach them. There's just no way. We tried, and there's no way to reach them. And so it would be really interesting to hear their thinking process, because the technology that they need is right there. Not just with Remark, but also within the Polkadot ecosystem, which lets you run your own chain that is connected to everything else and optimized for this metaverse. It's right there. So it'd be really interesting to hear which direction they're thinking in. If we can help with that somehow, that'd be quite fascinating.
The Yuga Labs and the founders, at least, were doxxed, surprisingly easily doxxed. It was a bit odd. They were just sitting there in plain sight on public registers, but they were doxxed, I think, a month or two ago, right? But I mean, they're fairly private. I'm not sure. I haven't seen that they like to share too many plans outside of like a few tweets here and there.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But we'll definitely reach out to them. And I mean, in terms of their metaverse, I don't think they've really released much, have they? In terms of like the specifics on how they're planning to deliver it.
Well, there was the deck, and there's a lot of info.
I have heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
It's also, most of this information is now on the website. They've upgraded it, so you can see the actual info on the site. So a lot of it sounds very familiar, and would be right at home in our ecosystem.
Okay, interesting. Okay, Yuga Labs. Anybody else you think we should speak to?
Well, there are other metaverse. There are other NFT projects in the space of Polkadot that, if you want to explore that side, you can go for those. So there is Unique Network, which is building a chain specifically for hosting NFTs, and there is BitCountry, which is building something like a sandbox competitor, but on the Polkadot ecosystem. And these projects are interesting because, like I said, they're connected to the shared Polkadot universe, And this means that, whatever you do there is automatically readable across chain through other chain logic, which makes for some interesting mechanics in terms of, like, for example, the Phala world. Actually, I think Phala would be interesting to talk to, because the Phala world guys, the Phala network guys who are building Phala world is their own metaverse project that we've partnered up with on this new venture. And what they're going to be using it for is they will be oracleizing information from the real world, like your Reddit karma or GitHub commits and so on, and some on-chain information to create quests. And so it'll be like, make a Reddit post that has 2,000 karma or something, or commit on a Sunday or whatever. I don't know, commit something to Phala Network's repo on a Sunday or whatever else, like just generally quests. And the more you complete, the more experience you gather, but this experience is applied to your avatar as a non-transferable NFT, like I said before, and this upgrades your character so that you get a higher level character in-game. So your actual on-chain actions level up your in-game character, and so they've effectively gamified participation in Web3 in many ways. So I think this is a really interesting experiment, and one that should be really fun to explore.
Coming towards the end, so last question for you, I think. Do you have any advice for people in Web3, or just any advice for people generally in life? What would be your piece of advice?
Don't be afraid to do something you think you need to do. I used to be really afraid of launching. Well, not afraid, but overthinking things. And I would think up a new project and spend 4 weeks on a logo or domain name, only to find out that in the 5th week somebody had built it. If you have an idea, launch, even if it's 10% fleshed out. He who ships wins. Don't ever wait for anybody or anything. Launch as early as possible and iterate, because frankly, no one really cares if your thing doesn't work when you first launch it. You will find out how much people want it when you launch, and then you can fix it when you find out how much people want it. Just never be afraid. Always, jump in head first and be ambitious. That's the way to go.
I think that's fantastic advice, and probably a good spot to end. Bruno, I want to say thank you again. It's been a pleasure every time we've spoken. This time in particular, learned a lot more. So just really appreciate your time. Thanks a lot for doing this. And on behalf of myself and everybody at in-house, thank you.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.